Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining us for another story here at Annie Narrates. The title for today's story goes like this. Ex-boyfriend from high school begs me to come back to his wedding in white, and I accept, but at the morning of the wedding, his BFF pulls me aside and tells me this is the reason why he invited me. I immediately ran. I'm 26 female, I'm currently engaged to my boyfriend James, 28 male. We have been in a happy relationship for about 5 years now, and we'll be getting married next year. I am also 5 months pregnant with our first child. Things were going pretty great these past few years. James and I had moved in together to our dream house. We had both graduated college, and I had finally gotten a well-paying job at my old high school as a student counselor. It was always my dream to help out kids, especially teenagers when it came to their mental health. I wanted to be approachable and understanding, and someone who they could talk to about anything without having to feel ashamed or scared. While growing up, I didn't have many resources or help when it came to these issues, so I made up my mind to get a degree in psychology and help out in whatever way I could. James worked for an international company and often had to take long business trips to other countries at least once every 2 to 3 months. I hated seeing him go so often, but he promised to work in our city for a while after the baby was born, so that comforted me a bit. During these times, I'd immerse myself in work, learning about new therapies and techniques to help children open up. It was also great working at my old high school because I got to interact with many of my old teachers. My mom lived nearby, so I got to visit her often and even stay over for a few days when James was out of town. About 3 months ago, I got a new student in my counseling group. Her name was Emma, 13 female, and she looked vaguely familiar to me. I'm not going to go into much detail as to why she was visiting me since it is private information. However, she was having some difficulties focusing in class and her teacher sent her to me to try to help her out. The whole session I kept trying to place where I had seen her before because she seemed so familiar to me, but I just couldn't remember. She was a bright kid and was willing to listen and learn the few tricks and tips I gave her to help her focus in class. Toward the end of our session, I was going through her file and that's when I noticed her surname and finally remembered where I knew her from. She was my ex-boyfriend's younger sister. I met my ex-boyfriend Ryan, 26 male, in my sophomore year of high school. The both of us were in the school debate team and went to many inter-school debate competitions together, and that's how we became friends. Over the time we grew closer, and we started developing feelings for each other. In our junior year, he asked me out to prom and we began dating shortly after that. Our relationship was fun, but it did have its ups and downs, especially toward the end. For the most part, Ryan was a good boyfriend, at least initially. We shared similar interests and views, took the same classes, and lived close to each other, so that made us inseparable. Despite the good times, one thing that always stood out to me, even in our early days, was that Ryan was pretty dishonest, and by that, I don't mean that he was cheating on me or anything like that, but he would constantly lie about small things that he didn't really need to lie about. He would lie about ridiculous things, like what he ate or where he was going after class. Super mundane things that wouldn't really affect anything. I noticed this and brought it up, and he said that he was just trying to be funny and his lies didn't really harm anyone. Our relationship lasted through high school and we got pretty close with each other's families. I remember going over to Ryan's house many times after school and playing with Emma, who would have been around 5 or 6 years old at the time. The real trouble started after we graduated. I wanted to go to a specific college that was out of state and offered a great psychology program, while Ryan wanted to stay in the same city and go to a different college. He tried many times to stop me from applying, which annoyed me because this was not new to him. I had always been very vocal about my interest in psychology and in that specific college ever since we started dating, and here, he was trying to get me to stay. He became extremely clingy and tried to guilt trip me by saying that I was going to leave him and find someone better and that he was going to be lost without me and was scared of quote-unquote losing me. At this point, I was so done with his constant cribbing and complaining that I even suggested that we break up so that we have no prior commitments and can start on a clean slate. This would also be the mature thing to do. Ryan was appalled by the fact that I even suggested this. He didn't speak to me for 2 whole days because of this, no matter what I did. When he finally spoke to me, I felt pretty bad. I told him that I was going to college out of state and we could try long distance. I know this wasn't a very practical solution because there was a 3-hour drive between us. We made a pact that we would visit each other at least every month and video call every day. Once college started, I was completely taken aback by the workload. We made it work for the first 3 to 4 months, but this whole long distance thing was getting too taxing. Ryan made it a point to video call me every single day and talk for hours. He would refuse to let me go even when I told him that I had tons of work. He would say the same old things, that I had no time for him or wasn't interested in him anymore. He was always a bit possessive, but that increased tenfold when I moved. He would always make sure that I was on video and show him my room to make sure that there were no other boys around, and got extremely angry whenever I mentioned a boy, accusing me of cheating on him. He visited me on my birthday weekend. This was my first week away from home, and I wanted to throw a small party with my new friends and wanted Ryan to be there as well. He came over and saw that I had invited a few of my classmates who were boys and threw a massive tantrum. He started yelling at them and shoving them, accusing them of misbehaving with me. He stormed in a mad rage, and I had to chase him through campus trying to calm him down. He left and ruined my birthday. This went on for a whole year, and his behavior kept getting worse and worse. He would want constant updates from me, approve of all my photos before I posted them, and forbade me from talking to other guys. He would always make it up by buying me nice things and being very sweet to me, tell me how much he loved me and missed me. Maybe I was too blind to see how toxic this whole thing was, but my friends helped me notice this pattern of toxicity, and I realized that this wasn't going to work anymore. One weekend when I was visiting home, I met up with him and told him that I didn't see us working. At first, he asked 100 questions, but when I laid out the facts, I was surprised to see that he took it pretty well. I told him that this was my final year and I had to focus on my studies and had no time for a relationship, and that we would be better off as friends. He agreed. He said that he knew that he came across as possessive, but that was only because he loved me. He said that I was his first love and he would always love me, and if I ever wanted to give him another chance, he would always be there. I was surprised, but we broke up pretty amicably. Over the next few months, we tried to keep in contact, but that naturally fizzled out as time passed. I finished my degree and decided to continue with my master's degree. It was more than a year after the breakup that I met James at a bar. We hit it off and have been together ever since. I didn't really think too much about Ryan throughout the years. Occasionally his name would pop up in conversations with old friends, and from what I heard, he had moved out of our hometown and was working on being a DJ in another city and had changed his number. That was a bit of a backstory. Now let's catch up in real time. When I found out that Emma was Ryan's little sister, I couldn't help but inquire about how he was. I am pretty sure that she didn't remember me, but I told her that I was friends with Ryan when we were in high school and would love to know how he was doing these days. Emma told me that Ryan had moved back about a year ago and was living with his fiancée. I was thrilled to know that Ryan had found someone else and was doing good. The next day, while I was leaving school, I saw Ryan in the parking lot. He greeted me with a huge smile and a hug, which I returned. I was surprised but happy to see him there. It had been almost 7 years since our breakup, and I didn't think that there were any hard feelings. We began chatting, trying to catch each other up with everything that's been going on. Ryan said that Emma had told him about me, and he couldn't help but come to see me. He suggested that we go to a nearby coffee shop to chat in peace. Now, I didn't see anything wrong with this suggestion, so I agreed. I have to admit, it went on better than I expected. Ryan seemed to have matured quite a bit since I last saw him, and seemed to be doing pretty well. He told me that he had a good job at a local software company. He also told me about how he had plans of becoming a DJ, but that didn't work out. He did meet his fiancée Maria, and they were going to get married in the fall. I filled him up on what was going on with me. I told him about my job and about James, and how we were engaged. I didn't know I was pregnant at the time. After about an hour of chatting, we decided to leave. James even suggested a double date with Maria and James so that we could all get to know each other and promised to catch up more often. A few days passed, and over the weekend, I got a call from my mother telling me that she had met Ryan outside her house. I was a little taken aback by this. Apparently, Ryan saw my mother while she was gardening, and he was walking past and they struck up a conversation. My mother was a little weirded out by this because Ryan seemed very interested in James and wanted to know everything about him, how long we had been together, and other super private details. He also wanted to know if James was in town because he wanted to schedule a double date. I was a little surprised, but he hadn't really done anything super weird, so I let it slide. James wasn't home this weekend, and I wasn't feeling too well. I realized later that this was pregnancy symptoms, so I planned on having a day of rest at home. When the doorbell rang, I was surprised to see Ryan standing at my front door with food, asking if he could join me for lunch. I wasn't really in the mood to have someone over, but he had bought some milkshakes from a place that we used to go to when we were dating, and my cravings won. I invited him in and we began eating. He kept asking me about James and how our relationship was, and after a point, I started getting a little weirded out, and then I wondered how he got my address. When I asked him, he told me that I had mentioned it during our meetup last week. I didn't remember doing that. Then he changed and said that my mother had mentioned it. I was a little skeptical but didn't want to jump to conclusions. After a while, I started feeling ill again and asked if we could wrap this up. While leaving, Ryan asked me if I remember the conversation we had the day that we broke up, and how he said that if I ever want to give him another chance, he was always there. I laughed and said that I did, and that's when he said that the option was still open. Now I was definitely weirded out. I reminded him that he was engaged and so was I. He began laughing, saying that it was just a joke, and left. James came back the next week and I found out that I was pregnant. We were both over the moon. While doing some baby shopping a few weeks later, James and I came across Ryan. I introduced them to each other and things seemed to be going well. He then saw all the baby clothes in the card and put two and two together. I told him that we were expecting a baby early next year and I was just about 2 months pregnant. Ryan's entire body language changed. He became rather serious and rigid. He excused himself, saying that he had some urgent work and sprinted out of the store. James commented about how he was a funny fellow and laughed it off. Over the next month, I went about my work. I hadn't heard from Ryan since meeting him at the store. I got an email text from him one evening asking how I was doing and apologizing for being in such a hurry the other day. I told him that I was okay and couldn't wait for the baby to come. He said that he was so glad that I was pregnant and couldn't wait to play with the baby. I thought that was sweet. He called me a day later telling me that he was going to get married in a couple of weeks and wanted me to be there. I was a bit surprised because his wedding was supposed to be in the fall, but agreed to go. I also asked him if I could meet or at least chat with Maria so I could help around with the wedding, but he would always say that she was busy or out of town. Since it was the summer vacation and didn't have much work to do, I hung out at my mother's place on most days when James wasn't around. One evening, while walking back, I saw Ryan across the street. He ran towards me and offered to walk with me. He began talking about how happy he was that we reconnected and how mature we were to put our past behind us and be quote-unquote together again. He suddenly grabbed my belly and put his ear against it, pretending to listen, and said that he was sure that he and little buddy would be friends too. If there is one thing you shouldn't do, is touch a pregnant woman's belly without her consent. I started walking faster, not making conversation till I reached home. As I was about to enter, he told me that the dress code for the wedding was white and that all the guests were asked to wear white. I thought he was joking, but after confirming multiple times, I agreed to wear a white dress. On the day of the wedding, I dressed up in the most basic white dress that I could find. Since James wasn't at home, I had to go alone. I was a bit confused because the venue of the wedding was in an apartment complex. I just assumed that it was a smaller wedding and drove there. When I reached the apartment, I expected to see way more people, but there was nobody. I rang the bell to see a man I had never seen before. He introduced himself as Nathan and smiled as if he knew me, and led me into the apartment, which had been decorated with flowers. I asked him where everyone was, especially the soon-to-be newlyweds, and he looked at me puzzled. I asked him if I was early for the wedding, and he just stared at me in realization dawning on his face. He suddenly pulled me out and took me down the stairs to the parking lot. I was very confused. He confirmed thrice that I was actually myself, and then told me the most bizarre thing. He said that I was the bride. At this, I began laughing, but he was dead serious. Then he told me everything. He was one of Ryan's best friends, and Ryan had been talking about me for the last 3 months. He told him that we had dated in high school, but recently reconnected and fallen madly in love again. Apparently, Ryan had got me pregnant and wanted to take responsibility for his baby, and that's when he proposed and I accepted. Nathan told me that Ryan was so excited to have a baby with me and that he was even planning on making a nursery. He planned this whole wedding in a month so that he could spend the rest of my pregnancy helping me. I was speechless. I asked him about Maria, and he told me that he had no idea who Maria was. And then it dawned on me. I was the Maria in all his stories. I really felt like I was being pranked. There was no way someone could be this delusional. All this time, Ryan was in love with me, and I just played it off thinking that it was nothing, and he was now planning on marrying me. I didn't know how to react. Nathan told me that Ryan had gone out to buy some stuff but would be back any minute, and that I should leave immediately and he would make up an excuse. I literally sprinted away and went straight to my mother's house and told her everything. She was just as shocked as I was. I am currently staying with mom right now. I told James everything, and he is on his way back. My mother thinks that I should call the police, but I think that Ryan has some serious psychological problems and is a pathological liar. He needs help, not the police. It's been 2 days and I haven't heard from Ryan, but I plan on meeting him with James just to clear things up. Let's see how it goes. Hello everyone, it's been a few days since I wrote this, and I have a few updates, but firstly I want to address a few of the comments saying that I was leading Ryan on. This is completely false. I never tried to be anything more than just friends with him. Right off the bat I told him that I was engaged. He even met James. He was always the one who initiated every conversation and meetup. I did not express even the slightest indication of being interested in him romantically. Also, a few of you have even accused me of being pregnant with Ryan's kid and that I am a liar. I can't even tell you how ridiculous that sounds. I was pregnant even before I met Ryan. I just didn't know it yet. While a lot of you have left encouraging comments, seeing ridiculous accusations like this is just silly. When James got back, he too agreed that Ryan needed psychiatric help and decided to meet him with me. I texted Ryan and told him to meet us in the cafe next to the school and to bring Nathan with him. At the cafe, I saw Ryan and he looked like a complete mess. He saw me and hugged me and started sobbing. I was very angry with him for putting me through this ordeal, but I couldn't help feeling a little sad for him. I pitied him. He began saying that he loved me and our baby and wanted to marry me more than anything, begging me to give him a second chance. I sat him down and told him that yes, we were in a relationship in school, but then we broke up. We hadn't seen each other in years and I didn't love him. I was engaged to James and the baby was not his. He started crying again, saying that I was lying and that he loved me. He started making such a scene that both James and Nathan had to hold him down. He kept saying over and over that this whole thing was a big prank and that he wanted to marry me. At this point I felt terrible. We took him back home and I explained the whole thing to him again. This time he seemed to understand and just went silent. I gently explained to him that everything was okay and he was just a little ill. I told him that I would do everything I could to help him. I have a few friends from college who can help him out with this so that he can get a proper diagnosis and start treatment. And I contacted one of them and set up an appointment which is in a week. I really hope that Ryan gets a proper diagnosis and the help that he so desperately needs. I will keep you all updated. Hi, it's been about a month since my last update, and a lot of stuff has gone down. I spoke to Ryan's family and they told me that they had no idea about any of this. Apparently, Ryan had lied to them too. He told them that he was engaged to quote-unquote Maria, but whenever they wanted to meet her, she'd always be busy. His job at the software company was also fake, and he worked at a fast food place. I told him everything that happened between Ryan and me and how he needed professional help. I also told him about the appointment and how they needed to be supported because they played a big role in his recovery. We drove Ryan out to meet with a psychiatrist, and after a few sessions, he was diagnosed as being a pathological liar and having bipolar disorder with manic and depressive episodes. I suspected the same. The doctor recommended that we admit him to the facility for 2 weeks so that he can get accustomed to the medications and new schedule and also help him clear his mind and accept the diagnosis. He agreed. His family was also oriented about bipolar disorder and its symptoms, triggers, as well as how to deal with him when he's having a manic episode. They were also informed about his medications and how to care for him. I get updates every day from the clinic, and so far, Ryan appears to be doing good. He's taken his meds correctly and hasn't had another manic episode yet. We are driving down in a couple of days to bring him back home and help him get back to his normal life. I request you spare a minute to include Ryan in your prayers. We'll keep you updated. Hello, I think it's been almost 2 months since I last updated. Sorry for the delay, but I have good news. Ryan is doing great. The medication and involvement of his family have done wonders for him. He is smiling more and even got back to work. He called us over to his place and we even made dinner together. He even apologized to me for everything. I'm so happy that Ryan has made so much progress already. My heart still breaks thinking about how he was before, and I'm glad that I could help him out in some way. Thank you for all your prayers and advice. Continue to keep him in your prayers. Hello, it's been a while. Ryan is doing great. He keeps getting better and better every time I see him. He's keeping up with his medication and consultations and even got a promotion at work. A small update on me. We had the baby. We had a beautiful baby boy. It's been about 4 months now and all of us are doing good. Uncle Ryan is doing great with baby boy and even bought him his first pair of shoes. Parenthood is exhausting, hence the super late update. But I wanted to end with this good news. And that was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Go ahead and smash that like button right now and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again. We will be seeing you in the next one.